Hare Krishna, dear devotees. I would like to welcome you all for today's online class with His Holiness Chandramauli Maharaj. Thank you all for joining. My humble obeisances to you all. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Aribo. Glories to Srila Prabhupada.
So, Maharaj.
Okay. So we're going to do a special class today, aside from the Bhagavatam verses.
Okay, Maharaj.
And if you can bring up the prayer, which we sing daily in the temple, Shri Guru Charana Padma,
Yes, Maharaj.
the words for that prayer. We're going to explore the meaning of this particular prayer by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. Okay. So
Just sorry, Maharaj. One. Yes.
So this is a beautiful prayer, which is every day sung in our temples throughout the ISKCON world. It's in glorification of the spiritual master. Particularly, we sing in the mood of glorifying Srila Prabhupada. But this prayer is made by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, whose Guru Maharaj is Lokanath Goswami. So he's dedicating this prayer in glorification to his spiritual master, Lokanath Das Goswami. So the lines, each one of these lines have a very precise meaning. It is known that Srila Narottam Das Thakur's bhajans and prayers, which are also in the form of bhajans, are the epitome of the Siddhanta of bhakti. They are very philosophically aligned with all of the teachings of the revealed scriptures. And they also conclude with devotional service to Krishna as the supreme principle of life. So here, this particular prayer, Srila Prabhupada adopted in our temples because as fledgling Western disciples, we had very little knowledge or any knowledge of what is a spiritual master, how to understand the spiritual master, how to treat the spiritual master, how to what is the actual position of the spiritual master. So Prabhupada did this as a way to help us go deeper in the understanding, both in the mood of devotion and in the philosophical understanding, is what is our relationship with him, to the Prabhupada. His prayer is very beautiful. I'm going to take it line by line, and then we can discuss the prayer in toto at the end. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. This is a very ornamental statement. Shri Guru refers to that Guru who is endowed with all opulences or all excellent spiritual qualities. And Charana refers to how we approach the Guru through his feet, which are like lotuses. A lotus is the purest thing in the material world because a lotus can grow into a muddy pond and yet be completely bright and clean from the mud. The mud cannot stay on the lotus because although the lotus can grow in a muddy pond. It is so pure and it's so beautiful. If you ever seen a lotus flower, you will actually become somewhat absorbed in looking at it because it is so transcendently arranged. So this analogy or this connection between the lotus feet of the Guru and the Padma, or the lotus, is illustrated that the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the place where, and it follows, Kevala Bhakti Sadma. There is different levels of bhakti, and Kevala Bhakti is the highest, one of the highest levels of bhakti. That is unalloyed, pure devotional service. It's also called Ananya Bhakti, Kevala Bhakti. Both of them have the same essential meaning. So we begin the prayer by singing Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. And to glorify the spiritual master as being a representative of the Supreme Lord, because he can give, or we can receive, that bhakti, which is the highest form of bhakti. So Sri Guru means that Guru decorated with all good qualities. Bando Mui Savadana Mate. Prabhupada would comment on this statement and saying, not like a hatchet. Hatchet refers to an axe. When you use an axe, you swing it down and then you bring it back up. So when you approach the spiritual master, it shouldn't be like that. It should be done with great awe and devotion. So as we pay our obeisances to the spiritual master, it's not just some, what we say, ritual that we go down and come back up. It's done with great care. This is what this means, savadan, with great care and great devotion. Bando Muvi Sarvadana Mate. So we approach the spiritual master in that mood. And Srila Prabhupada, when he would have his disciples coming in and out of his room doing service, they would always pay their obeisances coming in and going out, even though they were in the middle of service, in order to keep that mood. Because if one gets familiar, or what we say ordinary, with the spiritual master, then they lose that connection with transcendental knowledge and the mercy that comes by way of transcendental knowledge. So one has to be very, what we say, humble, and approach with great attention and great desire to serve. Yanhara Prasade Bai, A Baba Toriya Jai. So this material world is compared to a great ocean, and no one can swim across the ocean. Even the best swimmers cannot swim across an ocean. The ocean is so vast, so deep, and so full of dangers. So in the same way, this material world is like an unlimited ocean. And to become Krishna consciousness, we have to cross beyond it. So in order to cross beyond it, you have to have a proper boat, you have to have favorable winds, and most important, you have to have a qualified captain. So this verse, this particular section of this verse, refers to crossing this ocean of material. Bhava means material ocean. Toriya is only can be done by the mercy of the spiritual master. And no one can cross beyond this material ocean simply by their own efforts. People try various types of programs in order to somehow free themselves from the suffering of this material world. We have various types of persons who are renunciates, who give up many material activities, but they don't take on positive spiritual activities, and therefore they again fall back into the material world. So all the efforts of the conditioned souls to cross beyond, or to overcome the effects of the material energy, the three modes of material nature, can never be successful unless one gets onto the boat of devotional service and has that captain, which is the pure devotee spiritual master. He can take you across. Now, it also, the analogy is also given that this ocean shrinks to the size of a puddle. And then, of course, if you come across a puddle, you can jump over the puddle easily. So one can easily cross this ocean of material existence with in the boat of devotional service, guided by the authorized and qualified captain, the pure devotee, spiritual master. And where does the other side of the ocean lead to? Krishna Prapti Hoi Yaha Hoite. That one, he delivers you to the lotus feet of Krishna. So that is the actual success of the devotee. He gets Krishna's mercy in the form of taking shelter of Krishna in devotional service. And only by the mercy of the spiritual master, who is the perfect captain, can we sail across these three modes of material energy, which are impossible to overcome by one's own efforts. No one can do it. Only Krishna, through the spiritual master, becomes the qualified boat and direction by which one can sail across this ocean of material existence. Mayadavase, Kacho Bese, Kacho Ho Bubu Dubai, Deep Chief Krishna Das, Hey Vishwas, Kolidana Dukanai. Life after life, we've been struggling in different species of life. Karanam Ganasangosho, Sarasad Joni Samjanmasu. Sometimes we have a good situation in the material world. We're in the heavenly planets as some demigod or demigoddess. And another time we sink down to the lower levels of the material existence into the hellish species of life, or even into the lower animal species of life. So we're moving up and down. The material world is compared to a merry-go-round. You see these little entertainment things they have for kids called a merry-go-round. It's a big platform with all of these fake horses on it with poles. Each horse has a pole connected to it. And the merry-go-round goes around and around, but at the same time it goes up and down. So this is our situation. We're going up and down, life after life, somewhere in this material tabernacle, enjoying and suffering the three modes of material nature. And when one actually starts to understand one's situation, that one cannot successfully push back the sufferings of material energy by one's own effort, then one starts to look towards the spiritual master or the process of pure devotional service. So, and then that is the mercy of the spiritual master. He brings one to the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna Prapti, Hoi Yaha Vaite. And then the next verse, Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, Chite Te Koriya Aikya Ana Korina Manias. Mukha Padma, the lotus lips of the spiritual master, Vakya, he's speaking. What is he speaking? Those words that are meant to inject into us the realization of our relationship with Krishna in the spiritual world. So we become absorbed. This verse actually means it's my spiritual nourishment. Just like we get nourishment from food, we get nourishment from exercise, we get nourishment from clean air. The body and mind get nourishments in the varieties of way, but the soul, you, us, the living entity, gets nourishment from the hearing from the lotus mouth of the spiritual master, And what is it? Ana Korea Manias? I don't need to go anywhere else. Everything is right there. I'm not interested in finding another source of information. The Guru, when he speaks the words of Krishna.
Ma qua, chiaro. Oh, yeah.
Close your thing there. Okay. He doesn't concoct any ideas. The Guru doesn't make up his own program. He is simply aligned with the knowledge coming from Shastra and coming from Krishna directly. He understands it, he's living it, he practices it, he teaches it, and he gives it directly as it is. That's why when Srila Prabhupada wrote the Bhagavad Gita, or put together the Bhagavad Gita, he said Bhagavad Gita as Krishna intended it.
L'hotspot.
Janava. Yeah, okay. So one has to hear regularly from the words of the spiritual master. And when one will become filled with the knowledge given by the spiritual master, one will understand where there's nowhere else to go. Everything is there. Whatever I need to become Krishna conscious, it's perfectly there. All I have to do is absorb myself in hearing regularly from the spiritual master. That is my nourishment, that is my food, that is my life, that is everything. Because he is giving what Krishna is giving. Anna Koryo Manias. I'm fixed. I'm not going anywhere. So this is Narottam Das Thakur. He's explaining it that way. I just want to hear just the words of my spiritual master. That's all. Shri Guru Charane Rate. Rati means attachment. Ase Uttamagati brings about the ultimate success. Attachment to the lotus feet of the spiritual master is the perfection of life. My ultimate. Uttama means ultimate and highest. Gati means attainment. Rati means attachment. I'm attached to the lotus feet of the spiritual master. And what is the result? Ye prasade purve sarva as. That whatever I want in life, I don't need to go anywhere else. I find it in the words of my spiritual master. I find it in the direction he gives me in the execution of devotional service. I don't have to go here listening from this person, listening from that person, going here, going there, trying to fulfill my desires in different ways. Because I know that simply by hearing from and serving and becoming fixed in the words of the spiritual master, then all of one's desires automatically were fulfilled. One doesn't have to fulfill their material desires separately. Everything becomes automatically satisfied through the words and the service of the spiritual master. Next one, Chakshudan Diloye, Janme Janme Prabhu say. Chakshu means eyes. He opened my eyes with what? Knowledge. He Janma Janme Prabhu say. Janme means birth after birth. He is my Lord. He opens my eyes, and we sometimes say, with the torchlight of knowledge. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he enters into the heart of the devotee. He's there, and he gives illumination through transcendental knowledge, which guides the devotee back to him in devotional service. So that transcendental knowledge is like a lamp. And what is that transcendental knowledge? This is the next line. Divya Gyan. Divya means transcendental. Gyan means knowledge. Hriday, within the heart. Prakasito. So what is that transcendental knowledge? You belong to Krishna. You don't belong to this material world. You are Krishna's eternal servant. You have nothing to do with this material world. And although you're connected in so many ways, simply that is due to this bodily conception of life. So this Divya Gyan destroys that bodily conception of life and awakens our realization, not just knowledge, but realization that we belong to Krishna and no one else. Divya Gyan, that is the perfection of this knowledge. Prema Bhakti, Yahoite. He can give you pure devotional service. He can give you love of God. If the spiritual master is pleased by the execution of the devotee in devotional service, he asks Krishna, Krishna, please bless this person. And when Krishna blesses, then one awakens one's attraction and love for Krishna. So prema bhakti comes also from the spiritual master. Avidya vinasayate. He destroys ignorance. Avidya means ignorance, or that knowledge which is material, which is also in the category of ignorance. So he gives prema bhakti. He destroys material knowledge, which is the foremost form of ignorance. When one thinks there's something else than who they actually are. So one has to hear regularly and serve the spiritual master, and all this knowledge becomes revealed. Not just theoretically, but one can understand it intuitively or through realization. Vedigai Jahara Charito. All the Vedas glorify the spiritual master, his position, his service, his qualities, his service to the Supreme Lord, his service to the conditioned souls throughout the universe. Vedigahi Yanharacharita. They sing. Charito means to sing or to glorify. The Vedas glorify the spiritual master in so many ways. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu, Adamajanada Bandhu. Karuna means merciful, kindness, compassion. Sindhu. Sindhu means ocean. So Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu, he is an ocean of compassion and mercy. Adamajanada Bandhu, he's the friend of all of the living entities. He is the well-wisher. He has no other concern but to give Krishna to everyone. Therefore, he's everyone's best friend and well-wisher. Adama Janata Bandhu. And then Narottam Das Thakur speaks about his spiritual master. Lokanath Lokyarada Jivan. So he's speaking about Lokanath Das Goswami in this statement. And therefore, he's saying, Lokanath Goswami is my life. He is the life of my life. Jivana means life of life. Haha Prabhu, Koradoya, Dehamora Parajaya. This is very important, this one. The spiritual master is merciful. He's very kind. But still, I shouldn't take advantage of his kindness. I should be eager to receive what he is given. Therefore, I call out to my spiritual master, please be merciful to me. Please awaken within me devotion to Krishna. Please destroy those obstacles that are blocking me in my spiritual progress. So, although the spiritual master is merciful, we shouldn't take it for granted that the mercy will come. It's going to come. But when you cry for it, you plead for it, you beg for it, then it shows both Krishna and the spiritual master how eager you are for it. And that eagerness brings about greater knowledge and greater awareness of our relationship with Krishna. Now, this is a very, we sing this with great emphasis when we sing this. Aha Prabhu Goradoya, Deha Moda, Harachaya. And then we'll end by Abhyas Jusa Kusik Tribhuvan. Tribhuvan means three worlds. Your glories are being spread throughout the three worlds. He is Jagat Guru. He is the guru of everyone. When Srila Prabhupada asked, how many disciples do you have? Prabhupada would say, I have, everyone is my disciple. Some know it and some don't know it. So when he comes, he represents Krishna for all of the living entities in the material world. Hare Krishna. So that's the prayer in those 4 verses. This is a continuation. These part we don't sing, and I'm not sure exactly of the meaning of this particular section of that prayer. There is one beautiful book called Sri Prema Bhakti Chandrika, The Moon Rays of Loving Devotion. And in that, this is by Narottam Das Thakur. He gives purports describing these 4 verses that we have just discussed, like that. Go to the end and see if there's a translation there. I say here, yeah. The lotus feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which we can attain pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection that fulfills all desires, not just the spiritual desires, but all desires. He opens my darkened eyes, I'm in ignorance, and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. In other words, the spiritual master becomes the most important person in the life of the devotee. From him, ecstatic prema emanates. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is an ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of devotees. O Lokanath Goswami, and when we say, O Srila Prabhupada, O Master, be merciful unto me. Give me the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread all over the 3 worlds. So these 4 verses is the ones we sing every day. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakti Sadma. Hare Krishna. So we can see if there's any discussions based on these beautiful prayer of Srila Narottam Das Thakur.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this wonderful translation and the deeper understanding. So, dear devotees, we'll open up for question and answers. You can raise your hand or you can put your question in the chat window. And if you can't do that, and I can read it on your behalf. And also, a humble request, if you can turn on your cameras to make this more personal and interactive. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Shridevi Mataji, you have a question? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Prabhu. Dear Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. First, thank you so much for focusing on this wonderful topic of Guru-tattva, which we really need to understand. My question, Guru Maharaj, is because the spiritual master is so unbelievably kind, compassionate, merciful, tolerant, we may sometimes take him for granted or even become familiar. So this becomes, we become complacent and get familiar. But this is very much to be avoided. And how can we be on guard against this kind of slipping down into this kind of thinking and even making Guru aparad?
Sometimes, we might say not many times, but sometimes spiritual master will speak to his disciple in a very relaxed and ordinary way, just like almost like friend to friend. But the disciple should not think, well, now I can just speak anything. So we were listening to Shruti Kirti, and he was explaining that one of the qualifications of associating with the spiritual master is not to initiate a conversation with the spiritual master. Let the spiritual master say something, and then we respond. We can ask questions that are relevant to our spiritual progress. That is not only allowable, but encourageable. But to initiate just ordinary conversations with the spiritual master will sometimes help bring about this wrong mentality of seeing the spiritual master as ordinary and becoming ordinary in our dealings. As soon as we lose that mood of reverence, we actually are putting ourselves in a position to ultimately fall in Krishna in our spiritual practice. So this prayer really illustrates that on how one should see and interact with the spiritual master. Even if the spiritual master is very friendly and like that, one should not take advantage of that and become frivolous or ordinary or familiar.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Manisha Mataji, please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, you have said a line in the lecture that not to hear theoretically, but to hear through realization. Can you please elaborate this line more?
Say that again. I didn't catch the
Not to
whole.
hear, not to hear theoretically, but to hear through realization.
No, I'm saying if you hear with absorption, then you'll rapt attention, as Srila Prabhupada would say, hear with rapt attention. One can start to realize the knowledge that is given simply by the hearing process. But that takes absorption, and that is something that develops in the relationship with the spiritual master. Doesn't happen immediately or automatically. It happens over a period of time. One becomes just like when Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati was approached by one of his disciples who recommended Srila Prabhupada, our spiritual master, for initiation. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said, "Oh, yes, I have noted him. He likes to hear. He likes to hear." Now, that is one of the most important qualities of the spirit of the disciple. They like to hear, both from the scriptures and from the spiritual master. They make that's that one verse. Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Cheti Chitete Koriya Oikya. That Vakya, those words of the spiritual master, is my nourishment. Therefore, I want to hear more and more. And then over a period of time, we'll start to realize the knowledge we are hearing. It develops along with our execution of our service. And we can also, of course, asking questions is in line with gaining clarification and further knowledge. So one should also ask questions if there's some reason to know deeper or to get a more clear understanding. And we won't ask questions unless we hear carefully. That means very absorbed hearing, not just kind of like, well, the sound vibration is there, the words are going out, but I'm not really connecting deep. I'm just connecting on a superficial level. That won't bring about realization or questions. So the art
Yes,
of hearing,
Maharaj.
the art of listening.
Uh,
And the mind is always chanchala, it's always jumping. And so we're hearing, and then the mind will go somewhere else. So one has to destroy the faults of the mind, which means to realign the mind with the hearing process. And many times we have to really, what we say, hone in onto that sound vibration and listen very, very carefully what is being said. I mean, the words of the spiritual master, even if we don't understand it, they have potency. Of course, we want to understand it, but to give you an example, when Prabhupada would travel with his American disciples, they would go to places where people were speaking Hindi. And Prabhupada, he would give lectures in the morning in English, and in the evening he would give Hindi lectures. And so the devotees would be sitting there with Prabhupada, and he'd begin talking in Hindi. And then some of them would get up and start going out. Prabhupada said, "Where are you going? Sit down, listen." Simply by hearing, you will also become purified. So that Vakya is not simply sound vibration. It is meant to awaken, in which it does, our consciousness towards devotional service to Krishna. Now that's the type of hearing we have to practice.
yes, Maharaj. But sometimes I feel hesitation in asking questions, wondering if I am asking the right thing or wrong. So, what should I do?
Think about your question before you ask it, and then decide. If you just, once it comes into your mind, immediately you either reject it or speak about it, that may be all right in some cases, but think about what you're going to ask, and also think about how you're going to express it. Put the words together before you actually speak them. This is contemplative speaking. These are all arts. These are all part of the art of hearing. Because we don't really know how to hear, because our minds are too disturbed from external association with the material energy. So a lot of the sound vibration that comes into our purview, we block it out because it is something that is disturbing. So this blocking comes automatic. But therefore, it can also work against when we hear transcendental knowledge. We have a tendency to hear superficially, hear half-heartedly, or not really understand what we're hearing because we're not really tuned into the sound vibration, because the sound vibration not only has the knowledge, but also has the mood by which it's being delivered, which is just as effective in gaining knowledge as the knowledge itself. Listen carefully. You see, sometimes something is emphasized and something is just ordinarily spoken. You make that distinction in the hearing process. We have to learn that art of hearing. You practice that. For instance, I'll give you an example. Take a lecture and listen to it, a recorded lecture, and listen to it very carefully. And when you're done, listen to it again. And then when you're done, listen to it again. Listen to it at least 3 times. And you will always experience something new each time you listen. That is the power of transcendental sound.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Maharaj, I have a practical question. I had this question for many years. So Maharaj, when we sing the prayers, no, it is sung in the morning during prayers to Srila Prabhupada. Um, can we also offer and sing these prayers to our spiritual masters, or
Yeah,
should
you
we
should,
it
yeah,
always?
you should be thinking of your spiritual master while you're singing those prayers.
Okay.
Those prayers are not just for Prabhupada, they're for the disciples who are singing them should be focusing on their spiritual master. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Maharaj. Okay. And another practical question, Maharaj. You mentioned it already. I had the question, but I think you answered it. But I just wanted to clarify that. So, Maharaj, during services, if we have to go in and out of our temple room, do we always then go and pay obeisances to Srila Prabhupada?
Well, if you're going in and out of the temple room, you always pay obeisances. Because the temple room is the place where the Lord resides. But even in Prabhupada's personal quarters, he initiated that, and that was important for the devotees because they needed to learn that relationship with Srila Prabhupada. You have to understand that devotees, the people who came to Srila Prabhupada didn't know anything about what is a guru, how to treat a guru, how to take advantage of whatever he is saying. The Prabhupada had to teach us from scratch. And then when they were brought to India and people saw how Prabhupada was treated by the general population in India, they had an awakening experience. Prabhupada was very personal, very friendly, sometimes very relaxed. And people took advantage of that, but Prabhupada somehow tolerated that so he could somehow preach Krishna consciousness despite the fact that many of us didn't know the etiquette. There's a nice verse in the sixth canto Srimad Bhagavatam which describes the faults that the disciple can fall in relationship to the spiritual master. It centers around the pastime when Indra was being worshipped in the heavenly planets by all of the principal demigods, and he was on the throne sitting next to his wife Sachi Devi, and they were singing the glories of Indra. And it was really a very gorgeous arrangement, celebration. At one point, Brihaspati, who was the spiritual master of Indra, entered into the assembly. As soon as Brihaspati entered in, Indra noted and saw his spiritual master, but he didn't do anything. He simply continued with the worship. Brihaspati noted that, and he turned around and walked out. He could see the arrogance or the pride that Indra had. And as soon as Brihaspati walked out, Indra realized that he had made a mistake, and he understood he offended his spiritual master by not acknowledging his presence when he came in. And so Indra went looking for his spiritual master, but Brihaspati made sure he couldn't be found by Indra. And Indra was in anxiety. And in that narration describes what are some of the wrong activities, wrong consciousness that a disciple can fall into in relationship to the spiritual master, such as duplicity, faithlessness, disobedience, familiarity, and hypocrisy. These are some of the statements that align themselves with wrong consciousness, wrong activities. Yeah, so it's interesting. You read that section. I think it's the sixth canto, seventh chapter. I'm not sure of the actual verse. I can't remember the verse as far as the reference is concerned.
Thank you, Maharaj. I will refer to that section in chapter, Maharaj. So practically, every time, even if it's for service, even if it's a shorter duration, you're entering the temple room, you pay obeisances to Prabhupada and the deities, and then continue with the service.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're so old you can't bend down, I mean, then you can maybe make some humble gesture to offer respects. But generally, getting down is very good for spiritual consciousness. It puts us in our position.
Thank you, Maharaj, for this clarification. Sridevi Mataji, you go ahead, and then Vrishabh Prabhu. So,
Thank you, Dinara. Dear Guru Maharaj, I would like to ask this question with great humility, just in order to know, can one aspire to become like a spiritual master pure? And should one aspire to become like the spiritual master who is pure?
If you remember our seminar here, what did Prabhupada say? I want all of my students to get the title Bhakti Vedanta by 1975, he said. He said, yeah, he wanted everyone, maybe not all in the same capacity, but one who can speak transcendental knowledge and inspire others. To formally take the position of a spiritual master is not necessarily the principle of success. In other words, one can, from any position, become a spiritual master, as long as one is following the proper behavior and knows the transcendental knowledge and can speak it. Yeah. We heard about different types of gurus. Remember that?
Yes, yes, yes.
Mhm.
Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Vrishabh Prabhu, please go ahead and ask. Thank you.
I have a question regarding the removing the obstacle, devotional path that kind of held us back for fulfilling the order of a spiritual master. So you were mentioning in these prayers that we also pray not for also that the spiritual master give us the mercy, but also he helps us to remove the obstacles. So what is the process of removing the obstacle?
His mercy. But the obstacles can be removed by the process of bhakti, But the mercy of the spiritual master accelerates and makes those obstacles. It says, what is it? What is that verse? Prema bhakti yoho hoiti, avya vinasa yoite. So avya, vinas means to destroy. He's destroying. Nasa means to eliminate, to destroy. He's destroying all of the obstacles that come by our way of our execution of devotional service. If we have complete faith in him and follow his instructions, then these obstacles will be not only destroyed, but they'll be seen as opportunities for making spiritual advancement. Yeah, but we have to beg for that. We have to cry for that. We have to plead for that. We have to want it more than anything else. Then you can get it.
Is there any specific way how you cry except of this material, like tears or
Yeah, we did it.
what is
We said, what is it? Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Dehamori Padachaya. ABS. Ha ha Prabhu Kora Doya Dehamori Padachaya. Just chant that line over and over again. You're merciful. I know that, but still I'm begging. I'm begging because I want that mercy. I know you're merciful, but still I want that mercy. It's not like Prabhupada tells the story, of the boy who went to take the examination. And he came back, his father said, well, how'd you do on the exam? He said, well, there's some questions I didn't know, so I didn't answer. And the ones I knew, what was the use of answering? Because I knew them. So he didn't do anything. So Prabhupada's saying there's a class of religionists thinking, yeah, God's merciful. And that's all. That's all I need to know. He's merciful. Let me go on and do whatever I want to do because I know he's merciful. But that's nonsense. That'll never work.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you. Any other questions, devotees, about this very important topic? Maharaj, I have a quick question. You mentioned about there is no need to go to another source of information. Guru is the source, and you hear with attentiveness and follow the instructions, and spiritual perfection and progress will come. So, Maharaj, what would be your guidance about splitting the time about hearing from other devotees then? What would be your recommendation?
What do you mean by other devotees?
So, should I, if I'm hearing, should I only hear from Prabhupada and my guru, or should I then also hear from lectures about from other gurus and other senior devotees? And if so, what would be the percentage that you should kind of balance to hear between the spiritual master, the guru, and the other devotees?
I would say, to stay chaste, just to hear from your spiritual master, and maybe one other person who is also representing your spiritual master, who also that you can also be inspired by. I would say one other person. We don't need to hear from so many things.
Thank you, Maharaj. Akarshani.
It's kind of like, it's called spiritual, what do we call it? Spiritual bonanza. Let me try. There's people who go and like to hear from so many. But what is their commitment? They don't make any commitment. All they do is hear from so many people, get so many ideas, but they don't do any service generally. They're just gyanis, collecting knowledge. Many times the knowledge is contrary also, because sometimes they hear from people who are not authorized to speak. Better to hear from your spiritual master, and if you want, one other person who represents the same mood, not only the same knowledge, but the same mood as your spiritual master.
Thank you, Maharaj. Akarshani Radha Mataji, please go ahead. You have a question.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All praise to Srila Prabhupada. In connection to Deanna Prabhu's question about listening to other speakers, I'm assuming that means listening in your own time, not in like a Sunday program class, for example, because we have different speakers every week.
Yeah. Yeah. That means your own time.
Okay.
If you're going to the temple and there's a speaker there, he's sitting on the Vyasa-san. Asasan means place of seat of Vyasa-san. So they're representing the original guru, who is Vyasadeva. Otherwise, no one can sit on that and speak just because they want to. That's how the temple should manage that, not that anybody can sit there and speak.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Maharaj, just conscious of the time. I think we're nearing the hour. Sridevi Mataji has a question.
Yes, please.
This is her favorite subject.
I don't know one thing about this, Guru Maharaj. I need your mercy to understand one fraction of this. That's why I'm asking so many questions. Please forgive me if I'm being a nuisance. But I really, really am trying to understand. My question is actually picking up on what Akarshini Radha said. In this, just recently, not recently, sometime back, I was asked in class this question by one young Prabhu. He said, Mataji, we are supposed to listen to the pure devotee. And but generally we come every morning to the class and we are just hearing from each other. So how we are supposed to take this knowledge and how we are supposed to understand? So I just said my understanding is I'm not giving class. Prabhupada is giving class because we are speaking from Prabhupada's books. We are repeating Prabhupada's words, and so we cannot give class. It is Prabhupada's. Prabhupada is giving the class. So is that correct understanding that whoever is speaking?
Yeah,
Okay.
you're not only representing your spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, but the whole disciplic succession. So that's why I say one has to be qualified. Yeah. 3 and 1 is 4, 2 and 2 is 4. Well,
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, and all glories to Vaishnavas everywhere. Guru Maharaj, a quick follow-up on the same topic while we are on the topic. This is the year 2024. You can go on YouTube and search for Bhagavatam, a particular verse, and various, I have done that. Like if I had something pops into my mind, it'll say, hey, the Chowpatty temple president gave this lecture. And then some person in saffron cup pops up and you learn something nice from them. So how do we, the internet as a source of information, how should we consume that?
Well, everything has to be verified by the 3-point check, which is it in line with what the spiritual master is saying? Is it in line with what's in the scriptures? Is it in line with what the previous acharyas of the disciplic succession have also confirmed? So that is called the triangle of truth.
Mm.
So once you hear something, just like I heard something recently, and somebody was talking about Srila Prabhupada, and it sounded really fantastic. It didn't, but everybody was listening with, rapt attention. But later on, I got a message from one devotee he said, "What is he saying? Where did he get all this stuff from?" And then I checked to see how verifiable what he said, and it wasn't verifiable at all.
Mm.
So you have to, yeah. So this was just an impromptu series of people speaking, and he came up and wanted to kind of like we sensationalize Srila Prabhupada. And then I checked with people who know Prabhupada, and none of them could confirm what he said was valid. So yeah, you check with authorities, you check with scriptures, you check with the spiritual master. Blind faith and absurd inquiry are rejected, as it says in the scripture.
Makes sense, Maharaj.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Maharaj, there's one question in the chat. It's quite important question, I would say. The question is from Rishabh Prabhu. Who would you recommend, Maharaj, to hear other than yourself that is in your mood? I don't know if this is a generic answer or specific answer based on a devotee.
You're asking me a personal question now for a recommendation of someone to hear from. Is that it?
Yes, Maharaj, it's
I don't know if the best I ask, I don't know if this is like
You should ask me that.
something
You should ask me that question personally. We're talking.
Okay.
We have a broad audience here, so it may not be the same for everyone. Yeah, but I'll answer your question directly, but not in a public forum. Because others may doubt what I say. Okay.
Thank you.
Can we
Yes.
conclude here? I think
Yes, Maharaj.
pretty much it.
Okay. Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.